Did you know that nearly 70% of male characters in popular media are either emotionally flat or overly perfect? That's right, studies show that many writers still fall into the trap of creating men who feel more like caricatures than real people. Whether it's the overly emotional hero, the flawless Prince Charming, or the woke guy trying too hard to be progressive, these characters often fail to connect with readers. In fact, a 2019 survey revealed that 65% of audiences are turned off by male characters who feel unrealistic or too idealized. But here's the good news: you can avoid these mistakes. By the end of this article, you'll have 6 game-changing strategies to help you write male characters who feel authentic and compelling. From giving them real emotional depth to making sure their strengths and flaws are balanced, you'll discover how to craft men who resonate with your audience, without falling into common traps. So, if you're ready to stop writing flat, stereotypical male characters and start creating ones that feel like real people, let's dive into the secrets behind writing powerful, believable men in fiction. Chapter 1: The Over-Emotional Hero. Where's the grit? One mistake many writers make when crafting male characters is overloading them with emotions. It's easy to fall into the trap of writing men as overly sentimental or even tearful in situations where they wouldn't typically express vulnerability. Research shows that men and women process emotions differently, with men often less likely to openly show them due to societal norms. The Mask of Masculinity by Lewis Howes discusses how many men struggle to express their feelings because they're conditioned to hide them. So, how do you avoid this pitfall? First, instead of making your hero cry in every emotional scene, focus on how he feels the emotions internally. For example, show him struggling with the pressure of a tough situation, but letting his frustration turn into action rather than tears. Men in real life often channel their emotions into action, whether it's running, building, or fixing something. A great example comes from The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. The protagonist, Santiago, feels the weight of failure but doesn't cry. He wrestles with it silently, gritting his teeth and pushing forward. This shows depth and strength in the character's emotional landscape without him becoming overly emotional. It's important to balance vulnerability with stoicism. A good strategy is to let his emotions show through his actions, like making a difficult decision or choosing to protect someone. For instance, in Saving Private Ryan, Captain Miller doesn't express much outward emotion, but his decisions in battle convey his personal pain and responsibility. His internal struggle is communicated through what he does, not just what he says or feels. Another trick is to use physical cues, like clenched fists or a furrowed brow, to show the character is struggling emotionally but holding back. This subtle approach can create tension, making your audience wonder what's really going on inside. Finally, remember that not all men bottle up their emotions. Some may be more open, but the key is to make these traits feel authentic. Use his background, personality, and life experiences to guide how he handles emotions. Just don't fall into the trap of turning him into a non-stop fountain of tears to convey depth. Chapter 2: The Perfectly Imperfect Prince Charming. When writing a male character, another common mistake is to make him too perfect. You know the type, the handsome, strong, caring guy who's always the knight in shining armor. The problem with this is that perfect men don't exist, at least not in a relatable, believable way. Studies show that flaws make characters more relatable. According to The Psychology of Fiction by Peter J. Leithert, readers are drawn to characters with imperfections because they see themselves in those flaws. A character without flaws feels more like an ideal than a person, and that's not always compelling. A great strategy is to embrace imperfections. Let your character mess up. Maybe he has a short temper, or perhaps he's deeply insecure about something like his career or appearance. These imperfections create room for growth and make his journey more interesting. Take Tony Stark from Iron Man. He's a genius billionaire, but his arrogance and lack of emotional intelligence often lead him into trouble. His flaws are part of what makes him human and relatable. Furthermore, when crafting these imperfections, focus on how the character's flaws interact with their strengths. A man who's brave might also be reckless. The mix of qualities makes him more multi-dimensional. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger is a prime example. Holden Caulfield is full of contradictions. He's both cynical and vulnerable, immature and thoughtful. You also don't have to make a man's flaws stereotypical. He doesn't need to be emotionally distant or stubborn. Instead, look at everyday imperfections like being terrible at relationships, procrastinating, or having a fear of failure. These flaws make him someone readers can root for. The key is to make him believable. A perfect character doesn't get tested in a way that allows for growth. But a flawed character, they have something to prove. Chapter 3, The Beta Male, Gone Too Soft. Another common mistake is writing male characters as overly passive, especially in the romance genre. It's common for male characters to be written as overly submissive or completely lack confidence, leaving women to take the lead in every scenario. While it's great to have strong female characters, this often results in the male character becoming less relatable or just plain weak. Data suggests that men who are seen as overly passive or lacking in confidence tend to be less admired in fiction. According to a study published by the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, characters who take charge and show initiative are viewed as more attractive and engaging. So, how do you avoid making your male character too soft? Start by giving him agency. Even if he's shy or introverted, he should still have moments where he takes the lead in important situations. This doesn't mean he has to be loud or dominant, but he should still be able to make tough decisions when needed. Take the character of Frodo Baggins in The Lord of the Rings. He's quiet and hesitant at times, but when it matters most, he steps up, takes responsibility, and doesn't shy away from the weight of the journey. Another important aspect is balance. While your character doesn't have to be a macho, tough guy, there should still be instances where he shows courage and leadership. Don't let him be completely passive. In The Great Gatsby, Nick Carraway is a relatively passive character, but he still makes choices that shape the story. His involvement isn't overbearing, but he doesn't completely fade into the background. It's also crucial to allow for moments of weakness. Real men have insecurities too, but don't let these insecurities define them entirely. A passive character might be insecure about his abilities, but he should still try to improve or rise to the occasion. That growth is what makes him interesting. Lastly, remember that confidence doesn't always look the same. For some men, confidence is quiet, while for others, it's loud. The key is making your male character's growth feel real. He can struggle with passivity, but he should never be defined by it. Instead, he should overcome it, showing that strength can come from within. If you're enjoying this guide on creating authentic male characters, make sure to subscribe for more writing tips and tricks that can help you build better stories. Chapter 4, The No One Gets Me, Angst. One of the most overused tropes in writing male characters is the tortured soul, who spends most of the story moaning about how misunderstood he is. Sure, every character has their inner struggles, but when a man constantly says, "No one gets me," it can make him feel one-dimensional and a bit too melodramatic. In fact, a 2016 survey by the Psychology of Fiction found that characters who don't grow from their angst are less relatable and less liked by readers. So how do you break away from this cliché? Start by making sure your character's struggles are visible through action, not just words. Instead of having him wallow in self-pity, let his actions reveal his inner turmoil. In The Road by Cormac McCarthy, the father doesn't cry or rant about the world's unfairness. Instead, his quiet determination to protect his son speaks volumes about his emotional state. Also, avoid giving him all the answers right away. Instead of making him self-aware of his pain, let the journey show him how to heal or confront his issues. Just look at the transformation of Harry Potter throughout the series. While Harry deals with many internal struggles, it's through his actions and relationships that he works through them. He doesn't need to constantly declare his inner conflict. A key strategy is to give him relationships where he's forced to confront his demons. In The Catcher in the Rye, Holden Caulfield's inner turmoil is partially revealed through his interactions with others. Rather than having Holden explain how lonely and misunderstood he feels, we see it in how he interacts with people. Additionally, don't let him be perpetually depressed. While a character may face challenges, balance their personal issues with growth and small victories. Constant despair will leave your readers feeling drained. Instead, sprinkle in moments of hope and progress, no matter how small. Lastly, give your character some agency. In The Great Gatsby, Nick Carraway is a character who struggles with the hollowness around him but actively chooses to become involved in the drama rather than remain a passive observer. Chapter 5: The Incompetent Alpha Male. It's easy to fall into the trap of writing a male character who's meant to be a strong alpha, but is shown to be entirely incompetent in critical moments. This trope is often used to show that the female character is the real star of the show. While it's important to have strong, competent women in fiction, making the male character weak just to emphasize her strength can make both characters feel flat. In fact, 65% of readers surveyed by the Literary Review reported that they dislike when a hero's strengths are undermined for the sake of another character. The solution: strive for balance. A good alpha character should have both strengths and weaknesses that complement each other. For example, take Sherlock Holmes. While Holmes may be brilliant and authoritative, he often relies on his friend Watson to ground him and bring out his emotional side. His leadership is shown not through brute force but through intelligence and the ability to make tough decisions. Another strategy is to make the character's flaws part of his charm. In Die Hard, John McClane is not perfect. He's a regular cop who makes mistakes, gets injured, and stumbles through his adventure. But his strength lies in his resilience, quick thinking, and leadership under pressure. This mix of flaws and competence makes him a compelling and believable character. Instead of making your male character an overpowered figure, focus on how his vulnerability and strengths balance each other. Give him a specific area where he excels and another where he struggles. This will help humanize him, making him more relatable while still preserving his alpha status. Remember, even the toughest characters are allowed to fail and learn from their mistakes. Additionally, avoid making your male character seem clueless or weak in situations where a competent leader would shine. In Braveheart, William Wallace shows leadership, even though he's an underdog. He's not perfect, but he's never inept. Finally, let his journey show growth. A competent alpha character should evolve throughout the story. This ensures that readers can invest in the character's development and understand his motivation, making his strengths feel earned rather than simply assigned. Chapter 6: The Token Feminist Man. In today's world, it's common to see male characters written as too woke or overly politically correct, often as an attempt to make them appear progressive. While it's great for male characters to respect equality and be in tune with modern values, overdoing it can make them feel like caricatures. The danger here is that it's not organic. A 2018 study by the National Journal found that overly politically correct male characters often come across as disingenuous, with 70% of participants saying that such characters feel more like writing devices than real people. How do you avoid this mistake? The key is authenticity. Rather than making your male character shout out feminist ideals at every opportunity, let his actions and thoughts speak louder. In The Help by Catherine Stockett, male characters like Stuart take small but significant steps to show their respect for women. It's through his actions, like supporting Skeeter's career, that his progressive values are made clear, rather than through forced speeches. Another important factor is making sure his beliefs align with his background and personality. A character who's a feminist because it's trendy or because he's written that way will always feel shallow. Instead, think about his life experiences. Did he grow up with strong women? Did he see injustice and decide to fight against it? Pride and Prejudice's Mr. Darcy isn't the traditional feminist, but his actions toward Elizabeth Bennet show respect for her intellect and independence, and that's what makes his character feel real. The goal is to create a male character whose views on women are genuine. He doesn't need to announce his beliefs. Instead, show him through his interactions. A subtle but effective way to do this is through dialogue. For instance, when he listens to the female lead, values her opinions, and doesn't treat her as inferior, the audience understands that he respects her. Finally, let him be flawed in his approach. Even well-meaning characters can have blind spots, and that's okay. A truly progressive character is one who's still learning. Look at The Good Place. Chidi Anagonye is a well-intentioned, academic philosopher, but he sometimes stumbles in understanding people's needs. It's his growth that makes him a compelling character. By letting the character develop his feminist values naturally, you avoid making him feel like a token. Instead, he becomes someone readers can believe in and learn from. If you've enjoyed this guide on writing authentic male characters, don't forget to subscribe for more insightful writing tips and creative ideas. We've got plenty more to help you craft better stories.